So I do want to use this stock intake. I want to keep it looking as pristine as possible, but there were a couple of extra things that I wanted to try and do while I had it out of the unit. Alright. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you knew the very first thing I really did was to cut out that spark arrestor screen, and that did improve airflow quite a bit. The thing is that even if, like, I want to replace that tube, that's why I pulled it out of the airbox. I still would have had to do this anyway, because I can't get my hands on 36mm silicone hose, but I can get my hands on 38mm radiator hose, which is what I'm going to end up going with, seeing on what I can get my hands on. I will probably have to widen that hole out to make a new hose fit, but for the time being, I want to make sure that the stock airbox pipe fits, and if I can get a tube that I can cut down to match the size, I'll modify that to fit. But this is what I needed to do before this even goes on the bike. Alright, so I'm back. I managed to, the closest match I could get was some radiator hose, which is about as close as I'm going to get. It just so happens that the pipe that I found was the best fit came from a 1976 Ford Fairlane V8. And I think that is pretty bloody cool. So, the process here is pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're going to mark out the best match on here. So obviously we only need sort of this section here. Oops. I'm going to remove that. That was just the resonator, which actually all it does is reduce the drone a little bit. It's not a remotely necessary part of the intake pipe. Oh God, that was more trouble than it was worth to put that little ring back on. So, there's a great deal amount of eyeballing going on here. Probably be easier if I do it this way. That way is not getting in my way. So with a healthy amount of eyeballing, a little bit of overhang on each side is probably better than not. We're going to try and keep this line as effing straight as possible. I think I've done a pretty good job of that, to be honest. Okay, so what did we say? From there to there. So that wants to come alright, so there's our two marks. I might actually, before I get the Dremel out, just see how I go at slicing it with this, because it might be enough. Yeah. So, my radiator hose is now in two pieces. Of course, the stock intake tube only has an internal diameter of about 26 mil. And where it matters, we've got 39 on the inside there. As it happens, we're only about a mil out. Let's just snug this clamp up so it's in more or less the right spot. This is of course the stock throttle body. As we know, clip clip goes straight over, and that's a pretty loose fit anyway. A trick here with rubber hose is you just get a little bit of dish soap. Turns out we're out of fucking dish soap, doesn't it? Fucking hell. Sure, just leave it on the sink even though it's empty. That's just fucking so much more sense. Alright. A little bit of Vaseline. Some around there. Some around there. Okay, so that comes out roughly on that angle actually, doesn't it? And just like that, in it goes. So, we're not here because of the stock one. At any rate, a little bit of a tighter fit is not going to matter too much. Definitely goes like that, doesn't it? Going mad, I swear. So we're going to put a little bit of Vaseline around our little inner tube grommet here. And that is a pretty tight fit. That will of course clamp down even more when I do that up. But that's all she wrote. So now we have a nice, great big opening down here instead of this rubbish, whatever that is. So now that that's done, we have one more job to do, and that is to make this hose fit the airbox, which means I currently have a 37 mil opening there, and this probably about 10 mil bigger. I know that camera angles aren't great, but I'm not spoiled by choice with cameras, so I'm not sure how well the light will show. I'll do my best. Basically, you've got this internal pipe here which I'm going to leave in place, that the stock pipe sits over the end of. There we go, you can sort of see it on that angle there. So obviously that's a fairly firm, tight fit, so I need to make the hole big enough to fit this through. And I think there is this profile here, that is almost exactly the size that I need to whiz it out to. So I'm just going to go and get my flappy paddle and my drill, and we're just going to try and get in there and widen it out by hand. And then obviously we need to wipe it all out to get rid of all the shit that's going to get in there. Alright, so I've just jammed some bubble wrap down in there, not that it's going to make a huge amount of difference. Ouch. Don't tell me I'm idiot. This might take longer than I was hoping. This would be easier if that hose wasn't in there, but there's no obvious way of taking it out. It's not just screw heads. I think it's press studded in, which is so annoying. Alright, I'm going to stop here so I can concentrate, and I'll check in when I'm done. So one of the best tricks you can do with any rubber fitting is to drop it in a bit of boiling water. It helps make the rubber malleable and easy to get in. So I've absolutely made a bloody mess of that, but I reckon it's close enough to jam that in. And somewhere back here, we just have run-of-the-mill silicone RTV that we're going to run around the edges to seal up any gaps. So I'm going to just let that soak and do my best to jam that in and then get that bend on as close an angle as I can to what the stock one was. That's pretty good, I reckon. And so far as I can tell, that's about as close of an angle as the stock one was. Maybe we just rotate it up like that a little bit. I reckon I can make that work. If we, of course, look at where the stock one sits, or sat, actually, I might try and get that a little bit closer. It's kind of hard to tell. I've got to just line this up as close as I can there and try and get, I reckon that's pretty close actually. So let me try and show you in here. There's no easy way to sort of do this, so bear with me. Because it is a bigger pipe, I have got the convenience of being able to slide it further in, which is exactly what I'm going to do. We've got to try and get this as close as possible to the stock dimensions. Basically, I'm literally just lining it up. I'll try and give you a good angle, but I need to see what I'm doing just as much as you need to see what I'm doing. I actually think if I had to make a call, I would say, well, you can see pretty well there, that is pretty bloody close. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it. So there we go. One random bit of plastic. I did my best to clean all the dust and stuff out. It's pretty oily in there, which has trapped it all. But that, just as good as the stock one, isn't it? Alright, now we just have to beat it up. There's not much I can do for a camera angle here, I'm afraid, but I will do my best. Now this RTV silicone gasket, it's not really gasket maker, it's just adhesive sealant. It does have a 24-hour drying time on it. But supposedly it's touch safe after 1 hour. I think we need just a slightly bigger nozzle. There we go. Getting in through the top getting in through the top here is going to be a little bit difficult because there's barely enough room for a screwdriver, much less anything else. So I think I might just have to poke it down and hope. All right. I need to go ahead and make the rest of the bead look that nice. So I'm going to stop this so I don't get my camera gross, and I'll check back in once it's set. Right, so the aim of the game today is to remove this pipe, and unfortunately it doesn't just have Phillips head screws. It's got these press studs which I'm just going to try and drill out, and then this inner pipe, well, there's no silicone up here, I only did the outside, so this should just pull out of that new pipe. So I just drilled that out with a 5mm bit. As you can see, it's already loose. Those 2 points were the only thing holding it on. And well, I'm not going to measure this because it's irrelevant, but as big as it looks on the inside of the box, by the time it gets down, it is quite restrictive again. So what we have, hopefully I can show you here, there we go, is that 38mm pipe. Whoopsies. That 38mm pipe is now open to the box, so it should have no trouble drawing air. All I really need to do now is just make sure that there's no more like bits of plastic in there. So nothing fancy. I'm just going to wipe it out with a tissue because it's only really the big chunks that I'm worried about. So if you look right in here, you can see a gap in the silicone, which is probably a good thing that I pulled it off today to have a look. And the gap is in here where I knew that I would have trouble sealing it. So luckily I've got more silicone, so I'm just going to go ahead now and I might even put some on the inside there as well as the outside just to try and cover my bases. As far as I can see, the silicone's cured in a decent bead. As far as I can tell, that's the only gap. So I'm going to fix that up now off camera, and then I'm going to go ahead and reassemble all this on the bike. Alrighty, airbox is all finally back in, actually secure for once. We're gonna turn this back on, let it idle and warm up while I just go about buttoning the rest of the bike back up, which should only take about 5 minutes.